Our final presentation is from Annie Tarwater. Annie is an avid learner with a passionate heart. She emerged out of the woods one day. No one is quite sure where she came from. After many travels through darkness and light, she arrived at Columbia's Cultural Studies program. What she learned made her very sad and very angry, but even more, it made her determined. After graduation, she plans to merge her studies and with her love of animals and nature, with hopes that all living beings can benefit from a more sustainable and compassionate relationship. Her paper today, Bad Habits, Biopower, and BMI, Hegemonic Responses to the Obesity Epidemic in Low-Income Communities. This project is based on a 9-month internship at Erie Neighborhood House, working with low-income Latino children in the program Super H, geared toward introducing 2 to 10-year-old students to healthy lifestyle habits in order to combat obesity. On-site research suggests that simply teaching is not enough, but one must factor in advocacy and the availability of these products, both in terms of income and proximity. The hegemonic response to the obesity epidemic has placed heavy burdens on those deemed obese, placing blame on their choices and judging bodies based on body mass index. Programs that were created to help, such as Super H and Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign, ultimately reinforce the neoliberal ideology of making better choices without addressing the hegemonic structures of our global food system, which gives power to a handful of multinational food conglomerates and their highly influential lobbyists. Annie.
I think I can just move this. That might be fine.
Just sit up here?
Yeah.
All right.
That's actually a true story. I woke up at 23 in Carmelo's theories class, and I didn't know where I was. But I thought, this is interesting. I'll stay here. Thank you for still being here. None of you are obligated. Most of you I don't even know. So thanks for sticking it out. We're almost done. So the past 9 months, well, more than 9 months here now, I worked with a program called Erie Neighborhood House. They're really amazing. They're located in Westtown, Chicago, at Noble and Superior Avenues, which is funny. They have been working since 1850 with low-income immigrants, helping them get adjusted to living in America. Originally, it was Ukrainian immigrants, but with changing social and economic landscapes, mainly it is a Latino population that they work with. The program that I was a part of is called Super H, the H standing for healthy. This was this was created for children. There are 3 different parts of this program. Super H, which is for 7 to 10-year-olds. These kids were already at Erie Neighborhood House at the end of the day after school, and they had the choice whether or not to sign up to be a part of Super H. Super H Ethos, I was also a part of. This was at Erie Neighborhood House building where they had early childhood education. So this was for 2 to 5-year-olds, and they did not have a choice in this. I went every Tuesday and Thursday, and this curriculum was just integrated into their days. And then the last was Super H Parents, which our last session was just 10 parents that were a part of it, as opposed to the 200 children that we exposed to this. So I was actually not a part of the weekly meetings for that, but it is in my study. So during this, I would go in and teach about 24 different superfoods that the creators of this chose. And basically that just had a recipe that included the superfoods, and I would make this recipe with the kids. We also had movement activities, and then craft activities, and then for the younger kids, a book. For the 7 to 10-year-olds, this was actually very difficult because by the time the school day was over, they were very sick of being told to sit down and to listen. So it was a constant trying to get them to pay attention. The younger kids, the 2 to 5-year-olds, were actually my favorite because the younger a kid is, the less they have been influenced and conditioned by society to be a certain way. So the more they are who they are, which can be kind of annoying, but also a lot of fun. So throughout my work with this, I couldn't help but think, I'm teaching 2-year-olds to try and choose an avocado over a cookie. Is this even working? Do they even know what I'm talking about? I had to do post-tests, and Majority of the kids, especially the 2-year-olds, didn't even name a single superfood. The 7 to 10-year-olds got a little bit better. They were about at half, and then the 3 to 5-year-olds also, some of the superfoods they got, but they didn't remember all of them. And having to choose between a junk food and a superfood, they always went for the junk food because that's the one they liked the most. I couldn't help but ask what the point of me doing this was. It was a lot of fun, but at the same time, these kids don't have advocacy. They're not the one buying the groceries. They're not the one with the money to spend. So I know that you're thinking there is a parents program, but like I said, only 10 people were included in that. And not even all of them had kids that were in the Super Age programs. So I decided to look at this in terms of the larger spectrum. There's no question that obesity is a growing problem. Obesity occurs when a person's body mass index is 30% or greater. And this excessive body fat increases the risk of serious health problems, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, type 2 diabetes, cancer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it also shouldn't be surprising that the lower income one has, the higher risk they have of being obese. For just $1, somebody can buy 1,000 more calories in junk food than in fresh produce. So along with this obesity epidemic has come programs that are to combat that. So something that a program like Michelle Obama's Let's Move has emerged in response to this, and this is one that, has been on a national scale. The issue with this is that it's still framed as an issue of the individual making better choices instead of looking at the choices that they actually are able to make. This neoliberal ideology completely avoids challenging the hegemonic structures in place, a food system that is deeply flawed and affects all people, not just obese and not just low income. The top 10 companies that run our entire food system are PepsiCo, General Mills, Kellogg's, Associated British Foods, Mondelez, which is formerly Kraft Foods, Mars, Danone, Unilever, Coca-Cola, and Nestle. This means that majority of the brands out there, even the new fad of natural brands, have been bought out and consolidated by these companies. Back in 2010, Michelle Obama did challenge these companies, saying it is not just individual choice, it is also your responsibility to make foods that are not high in sugar and targeted at children. Soon after, those companies donated money to the campaign, and that pressure was relieved. Even our meat industry has been consolidated in just a few companies, meaning 4 companies own our entire beef market. This not only allows for food to be mass produced, but is pumped with additives and highly processed to keep a longer shelf life. And it also squeezes out small farmers, forcing them to either buy into what companies like Monsanto want them to produce or to leave the market. Big companies like Walmart, who purchase about 1 billion pounds of beef per year, also hold a lot of stock in how this is produced. So the obesity epidemic is not only or even primarily an issue of individuals making better choices, but rather a hidden control system on a systematic level that determines what kind of food is produced and available. Sugar is one of the leading causes of obesity. In 2014, the Food and Drug Administration proposed an added sugar column to nutrition labels, stating for the average American, 16% of their daily total calories come from added sugars. The major sources are soda, energy and sports drinks, grain-based desserts, sugar-sweetened fruit drinks, dairy-based desserts, and candy. There has been major backlash for this, even from Ocean Spray, which is my favorite, because they claim that nobody would drink their product if no sugar was added, claiming cranberries are naturally low in sugar, giving them a distinctly tart, astringent, and even unpalatable taste. And that is a very true argument, but we need to look at the amount of sugar that we're intaking. The average American takes in 130 pounds of sugar per year. The average American adult eats 22 teaspoons per day, children 32. The recommended amount from the American Heart Association is 9.5 teaspoons. Meanwhile, studies show that sugar is as addictive as cocaine and is linked directly to obesity, high blood pressure, acne, hypoglycemia, and hypertension. Today, we live in a world where 800 million people on Earth are hungry, while 1 billion are obese. This is because, to quote Raj Patel, malnourished children are at risk because their bodies never learn to metabolize and store fat properly, and the fat they do store is fat that is from poor quality foods, processed and high in sugar. So we've ended up in a world with few corporate buyers and sellers, and the more money these companies have, the more they're able to produce and do this. So therefore, they're controlling how this food is grown and also the people that eat it. Children are prime target for foods that are high in sugar. You go into a grocery store and you're overwhelmed with options of different kinds of cereal. There's like 100 different kinds of cereal. But looking beyond that, you only get to choose what these companies are allowing you to choose. So not only are these choices limited in supermarkets, but many people don't even have access to these supermarkets. In 2009, the US Department of Agriculture found that 23.5 million people living in low-income areas are farther than 1 mile from a supermarket, and many of them lack transportation to get there. Without access to a supermarket, residents are much more likely to go to small convenience stores, where basic food items such as milk and breads tend to be significantly more expensive. In Food Deserts, Governing Obesity in the Neoliberal City, Jerry Shannon criticizes the rising concern of the obesity epidemic in low-income areas, arguing that going into work on the problem is a spatialized form of neoliberal paternalism that bounds health problems within low-income communities. This speaks upon the idea that the poor lack the knowledge or resources, and if they didn't, they could just make better choices. This is what we define as neoliberal paternalism. In Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign, the website writes, combining comprehensive strategies with common sense, Let's Move is about putting children on the path to a healthy future during their earliest months and years, giving parents helpful information and fostering environments that support healthy choices. This doesn't seem completely bad, but the attention is still placed on the parents making better choices for their children, claiming it's common sense. And unfortunately, my work at Erie Neighborhood House, I feel like, contributes to this neoliberal paternalism. Even though this is meant to reduce stigma on individuals, these projects pathologize low-income communities and their residents by extension by locating the cause of obesity within their geographic boundaries. In their grant application at Johnson & Johnson, Erie states that 95% of the families involved in their programs live below the poverty level, with increasing rates of obesity in children and families. All of these participants come from the Belmont Cragen, Logan Square, Humboldt Park, South Lawndale, and Westtown neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods have been home to immigrants for decades. But more recently, areas such as Logan Square, Humboldt Park, and Westtown have begun gentrifying, bringing with them more shops and grocery stores. Gentrification also means raising prices, and some families may not even be able to afford to live in these areas much longer. Even if they are, the single grocery store in the area might be too far or may still be too expensive. For a family of 4, with both parents working 40-plus hours a week, frozen meals seem very appealing. The idea behind SuperAge is to make superfoods and exercise the more attractive choice without addressing the systematic prohibitions that often make healthy choices. It is not to say that the intention behind SuperAge are bad, but I am wary that these programs going in to try and combat obesity make that idea so terrifying, and it only perpetuates low self-esteem. And I think it's very toxic to teach young children that their choices that they're not even really making are affecting their lives this much. Weight becomes a marker of one's personal choice and responsibilities, and such biopedagogies further promote the neoliberal agenda by framing weight as a personal responsibility tied to a public health problem that threatens social values in a variety of ways. Increasingly, what becomes politically expedient and socially useful is tied to neoliberal corporate interests. To come full circle, the obesity epidemic creates a market for business to target individuals looking to lose weight and get fit. By selling foods processed and high in sugar, that ensure weight gain, companies create a market for individuals that need to lose weight in order to be healthy. Not to mention the way that media frames health, fitness as healthy, while fat is seen as unhealthy. Weight Watchers International is owned by investment firm Artel. SlimFast is owned by Unilever. Jenny Craig is owned by Nestle. These companies are selling fat and then selling diets to get rid of it. Even Herbalife, one of Super H's funders, sells meal replacement shakes and diet products. Big businesses like Permira, Subway, Dannon, and Walmart have even made their way into Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. There is no escaping the influence of these big corporations. They provide funding for projects that they created to combat a disease they helped create. While programs like Super H have been created in response to the obesity epidemic, their existence is not one that is necessarily harmful. Many programs have been founded to help fight obesity. These programs are doing what they can under the structures that we live in, but I'm asking that we look beyond what we believe to be our only options. Obesity is a disease that has been exacerbated and perpetuated because of a food system that is run by companies, I can count on my own two hands, that create and market addictive food products that are processed and high in sugar in order to make profit. Food, a necessity for life, is kept under lock and key. The more nutritious the food is for you, the more expensive it is. To buy organic produce costs double the amount of other produce. This severely excludes support from healthy, ethical food. Not only does there need to be an issue of segregation addressed, but we also must ensure that each neighborhood has access to healthy, affordable food. We must demand what is necessary to our survival. The human race cannot live long putting the needs of corporation above its own livelihood. Instead of patching up holes in the torn web of our society, we must abandon this neoliberal ideology of individuality and band together to fight the injustice we live through every day. We all have the same goal, which is to live healthy lives and to provide that for our children. Let us put our energy towards the greater cause of fighting for ethical, organic, and affordable food for all. Thank you.